virtual reality, augmented reality, gaming animation, and the virtual reality interactive work that he does is quite unlike any other typical medium immersed projects. Yes, his productions include revolutionizing gaming, Time Warpers, that was presented at Comic-Con, as well, which was with Mr. Craig Miller from the original Star Wars franchise. Currently, he is focusing on virtual development of virtual realities, leveraging on its unrivaled capacity to build immersive environments. Factory automation and flight simulation are some of the applications of the work that he does currently. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have expertise. Well, was that a question? Sorry, let me proceed then, because I thought that was a question just now. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, perhaps Dr. Doria, would you like to actually brief the speakers or as well as the audience on our house rules?
Yeah, sure. This is a session that will last approximately until 9:30. We might extend a bit beyond that. So thank you so much for allocating your Friday night with us. Now, some ground rules. Number one, please mute yourself so that we can concentrate on the speakers talking later. The next one is, if you have a question, do put on the chat box as well as the various links available online. We will try to monitor the questions and then ask the speakers appropriately. We will have 2 rounds of presentation. So the first round, the speakers will give some form of overview on what they do. And on round 2, the speakers will present some showcase studies on the fields. And between the 2 rounds, we will pick up some questions just to keep things going. So I think that's all from me. Passing it back to Rahmat.
Thank you very much, Dr. Doria, for that. So now let us kick off our session with a presentation as well as sharing on IoT. With that, we would like to invite Brother Victus Warren to actually start his sharing. Over to you, Brother Victus.
Thank you, Rahmat. Again, a very warm morning, evening, night, wherever you are. So I'm basically going to kick off on talking about the IoT part of it. So I've been in the industry, like what Rahman mentioned, about 24 years. IoT has been an area of where I've been quite passionate about. I think the first time I worked on something which was related to IoT, which was, well, 1997, when the term didn't even exist. Okay, so at that time, I remember we had some, we were using the internet to control lights at home. So it's like a smart home kind of thing. It was designed many, many years ago. Okay, so again, IoT is all about a couple of things. Okay, we have got, sorry, am I supposed to share, or will Luis be sharing it?
I'll share.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so so in this scenario now, what we are trying to say is, sorry, Luis, sensors. Sensors are the basis of IoT. I mean, we're talking about Internet of Things, right? So we have got sensors that take care and look at temperature. We have got sensors that do location sensing. We have got sensors that capture images. We have got sensors that capture gases, CO2 gases, nitrous, and various other gases as well. We've got vibration sensors, motion sensors, and so many other sensors that provide the basis of capturing of data. Okay, and the next part we have is basically the communication part. So even in communication, you have got so many ways where we have got different protocols, okay, different technologies that support the ability for these sensors to pass information, to talk to each other, or to pass it to a central database where we can actually capture and then monitor and use this data, right? So you have got technologies such as LoRa, you have got GSM technologies, you have got NB-IoT, Sigfox technologies, and these are that will form the basis of communication between systems as well as IoT sensors, right? So the next thing that we had that is part of the IoT network is the platform. Okay, so most of our key or major players in the market like AWS, Azure, Alibaba Cloud, GCP, all have got platforms that support the IoT data integration. Okay, so you can actually point your sensors directly to these platforms and you can actually capture data from these platforms. So that's where things like big data comes in. Okay, you need a huge volume of storage to be able to capture all this information. Then we have got processing of this information, which is required when we start looking at analytics, right? So we want to basically monitor trends. We want to be able to actually showcase certain insights from this. And this is where analytics on these platforms form a very major role in terms of the IoT ecosystem. Okay, so if you look at the 9 pillars, right, IoT is just one part of it, okay, which is just talking about the sensors, right? There are other supporting areas, like for example, the areas of big data, cloud computing, right? Systems integration. All of this also play a part in terms of providing an entire end-to-end solution. So it's not just IoT will solve all your problems. You will still need to look into all those other areas as well, which form part of the entire the 9 pillars in IR4.0. Okay. So the next part is looking at the industries where we find this, right? So if you look at the industrial, I mean, we talk about IR4, right? You will have you'll have IoT sensors in almost any and every part of our lives, okay? Utilities, okay? We talk about smart cities and smart buildings will be another area where a lot of IoT sensors will be deployed. We're looking at transportation and logistics. We look at manufacturing, agriculture, oil and gas. I mean, these are just some of the areas. You can also look at healthcare. Healthcare, a lot of IoT sensors and also technologies are being used in healthcare as well. So the list goes on and on. Almost every single part of our lives are touched using some form of IoT. I think if you look at it from the time we wake up in the morning to the time we go to sleep, we actually using our devices, which are whether we know it or not, actually sending out information, right? So and with the analytics that happen behind, we can even have technologies that even tell you when you need to go to sleep. Okay, so these are some of the kinds of areas where we find devices sending out a lot of information. Okay, so the next area is basically looking at some of the key roles of IoT, right? So why do we have this IoT? How is it going to really help us? So one of the key areas is basically looking at efficiency, right? So these IoT devices can replace manual readings, for example, right? So what we're looking at is we can use this information to capture data that will help us to then improve efficiency. And in certain areas, we're talking about human risk in places where it's dangerous for us to be, for a human to be present, like, in the steel mills. We can use these devices to actually replace the manual process of maybe checking the temperature of a certain liquid, right, which could be hazardous to the health. Okay, we will then look at automation in terms of using this whole devices to actually automate the entire process, right? We can also help us to use the input and data gathered to in fact give us a proper or rather data-driven decision-making capabilities. Okay, so I think one of the things that we're looking at is also looking at in the area of agriculture. So when we talked about regeneration, right? So it basically covers the way or rather cycle of life, right? From the time where we grow our crops all the way till it gets reconsumed into maybe fertilizer when it becomes rubbish or trash. Okay, so how is smart agriculture helping us? So in IoT, what we really use is basically the usage of sensors. And these sensors come in many forms, looking at the soil, looking at humidity, looking at water, irrigation. And using these information, we actually can develop or build a knowledge model of how crops can be optimized. So the growth of the crops can be tied up with data which we are capturing using the sensors, and also the yield when it comes out. Okay, so we can do benchmarking, we can do trial and errors, by manipulating various parameters of maybe say fertilizer or water or different environmental conditions to help us to actually optimize the growth of our crops, right? I think in the US and in many other countries, we even have invested in robotics. So we have got trucks, or rather the those tractors that actually have been totally and fully automated, guided by GPS, guided by satellites, by vision systems to actually do precision farming, right? We will not use it here in Malaysia, but in a worldwide, this technology is already available, and that's really helping us to actually do precision farming together and as part of the whole smart agriculture ecosystem. Okay, so automation is another area where, again, based on that knowledge, we can do an automation of ensuring that the crops are well irrigated, for example. So we have got connections to pumps and irrigation lines that will help water or control the water being generated just so that it's sufficient to sustain those crops. So there's very little wastage. Okay, logistics is also a major part, because, like, for example, now when I start planning when my crops are going to be farmed, when I'm going to do packing, I need to be able to ship it out as soon as possible. So an automation, or rather even a predictive model, can be built in terms of ensuring that the whole logistics platform can be optimized, in a way where we have got reduce the wastage and ensure that things are fresh when they arrive our table. Okay, so I mean, that's basically a very high level thing, Ramat. So back to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Vignesh. I'm sorry if I get your name wrong. Now, let us bring in Mr. Harita, who will be talking a bit more on artificial intelligence. Harita, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you, Doria. And I guess Louis is going to put the slides up. And it's really nice to see you there on this conference, and where we discussing how we can transform the business with Industry 4.0. And what I'm going to share with you is with what we can do actually with AI aspect, and the things that we can go forward with AI. So waiting till the size coming up. Yep, great. So if you go for the first slide, the first one where we have all those 4 areas. So when we think of this Industry 4.0, the difference between this one with the previous ones we had back in the days, because when we think of that Industry 3.0, where we had all the computers and automation came in for the industry back in like 1969. But today, everything has changed into the era, because everything is interconnected. As Vignesh has shared previously, everything is interconnected with the IoT, and everyone is talking about automation, and everyone is talking about like making the process automated using some robots kind of things. So everyone is talking about the interconnected space, or the network, or the cyber physical systems. So this is the place where the AI is coming into the industry. So if we go for the next slide, where we're going to discuss some of the most popular things that we have seen, I'm pretty sure you can directly identify what this is. So in the first one, we have the Tesla, the most popular one in these days, even with their recent commercial space launch, where Elon has done. So Tesla is using a pretty cool AI technology with that, that supporting the autonomous driving, which is going to be the next era of transportation. Not only on the roads, I'm pretty sure he's going to apply these technologies for the space too. And the second one, like Dota 2, if you are a gaming fan, you might very much familiar with this popular game. So recently, there were some scientists who built actually an AI, or an artificial intelligence system, which can beat the human champion, world champion of Dota 2 by using a computer. So this was a place where people were thinking, okay, is that AI is taking over the humans and they're gaining more power? That's a thing that we can discuss in the later discussions. And the third thing, I'm pretty sure you might using this thing in home, the Google Assistant. So it is having the capability of understanding your voice and understanding the environment even. So, and the next thing, which is from Boston Dynamics, which is going to be the next era where everyone is talking about robots and autonomous systems. This is going to be another place where AI is coming into the industry. So all these AI applications that we see today in the world, in the real world, are not new concepts. They came back in like 1940s and 50s, where Alan Turing actually gave the idea of AI and gave the definition of AI. But the problem we had at that time was we didn't had that much of computation power and that much of processing power to do these things. But then now we have all the cloud computing and multi-processing computing with GPUs and all. So AI has been democratized. So it is available for every person to empower their businesses as well as their day-to-day lives with artificial intelligence applications. So that is the era that we going forward. When it comes to the industry 4.0, what we have to think of is getting this huge power to perform more and achieve more for the small businesses or the medium-sized businesses, as well as for the individual, not only for the mass Fortune 500 companies. So we'll move forward and see where we can apply these things and what sort of things available there in the industry that we can adapt there. So this is a very simple example I took. This is just a simple system built by a farmer to classify his cucumbers. What is happening there is they classify the cucumbers into three separate groups based on the size. The technology they are using there is computer vision. They have mimicked the human eye and get a photo of the cucumber and classifying that thing using some kind of mechanical instrument. But the main part, the brainy part, is done by a computer vision application that actually mimic the human eye. So this is a simple application, but increase the productivity of the farming industry. So if you move forward, there are some applications like this is a very simple app. So everywhere we are talking about digitization and like digital document processing and those things. So you have a small app in your smartphone where you can scan a document and then just crop the thing and even scan what is inside there. If it is a bill, you can see what bill value there, and then you can pay directly from your mobile phone or any payment application by the extracted value. So that is simple object character recognition done through some image processing and might be some deep learning application which mimicking the deep neural networks we have in our brain. So there are some pretty cool applications that going to move forward, and where we can apply these AI and deep learning or the machine learning technologies into this. When it comes to these kind of applications, the main advantage or the main asset we have is the data. Because of the massive data amounts that we have and the massive data amounts that we gather today from IoTs or from the ERPs or anywhere, we have the ability to use that power of the data to build more accurate predictive systems as well as more effective and more proficient systems that can leverage the power of AI. And the next application I'm going to show you in the slide is some of the things that we do here in Australian sports. We do use computer vision and AI technologies for analyzing sports. Sports is a multi-billion industry. Everyone is crazy about sports here. Everyone is going for the footy in the weekends here. So we use these kind of technologies to analyze the poses of the players as well as to build gaming strategies. So AI is not only to go to moon, it's going to come to your industry. It's going to come to your farm to make sure you're going to achieve more for this. So we'll discuss about how this is going to happen and what sort of things that you can do with this in the next couple of minutes. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Brother Hafiza, for that particular sharing and highlighting to us that artificial intelligence is not 5 years down the line. It's here. It's already here. So we better get used to it, especially for the applications. But yeah, sports reminds me of my time over in Brisbane. Anyway, let's move on to the next sharing session. Now we have Brother Shami Krishnan to actually share with us his perception, his perspective, as well as experience when dealing with automation systems. Over to you, Brother Shami.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmad, and also thank you very much to the previous speaker, Mr. Vicky, and also Harita. When I recap from the statement from Dr. Ahmad said when he listened to or he get the information from one of the EU forum that he attended, that we are, when the German delegates or when they measured where we standing in our industrial revolution, we are close to 3.0, and 3.0 it is back in 1969, and now we are in 2020. So that's about 51 years. We are at very back. So that's not a great news for us. And I think this is a time for us to rethink, remodel, and restructure our business, and then driving towards IR 4.0. Yeah, through my experience, I have been working with German companies for almost 18 over years in high tech systems, and I agree with what Dr. Ahmad said. Even back in 2009, when I was working for this German company, we totally automized a print production facility back in Germany with total robots. So if we went to a newspaper printing, from the pre-press to the press, we need at least around about 15 to 20 people to handle it. But since we did it in a total automation, they only need 2 guys for pre-press and 2 guys for the press. So you can imagine how much of workforce has been reduced, and everything is automized, and everything is controlled by that era generation of IoT, data analytics, AI. So we use that models. So they are already that advanced, and sad to say that we are still back 51 years, and this is where we need to move on from now. Okay, I'm going to, I hope Luis can publish the slide, and then I can explain a little bit more on the yeah, thanks, Luis. Okay, in order for us to move towards Industry 4.0, we have to strategize the corporate value chain. That's why I put it there. Number one is we need the infrastructure, human resource, technology development, procurement. So if you look at it, I think in infrastructure, so we have a lot of legal related when it comes to data security at this moment of time, and a lot of real-time tracking in financial, and also the investment planning. This is very important when it comes to upgrading any system or to remodel, restructure, and controlling business model and building and floor space when it comes to like logistics and production facilities and so on. And the next thing is for us to go on the human resource management. So this is where the talent management, upskill, knowledge development, training, performance, emerging area of works, manpower, resource planning, and also empowering the workforce is is very important. Technology development, we're talking about hardware, software development, smart machines, cloud, network, autonomous robots, and systems. Procurement is also another area where everybody has to look into very seriously. That is the real-time suppliers performance, continuous data flow, optimization, and robotic process automation. And this is where also the IoT and data analytics also will be coming. So if you look at it, when we talk about, I'm just taking logistics as a model in this case. So inbound logistics, so you need an autonomous system, robots, artificial intelligence, IoT, RFID, sensors, like what Mr. Vignesh mentioned just now. So a lot of sensor data has to be taken in order for us to analyze and also to make sure that the system works efficiently. Operation, yes, you need RFID, again, sensors, automation, machine to machine, robots. Network is another where I was pointing out just now, as I pointing out, is a part of the infrastructures. Big data, data analytics comes in here. Again, robotic process automation. And then you have the outbound logistics, autonomous system, robots, AI, IoT, RFID, sensors again, and RPA. Sales marketing. This is where it comes to business intelligence, real-time CRM, customer relation management. It's a software, blockchain, and data analytics. Service, now we are using data analytics, AI, IoT, chatbots. And there's also, when we're talking about hardware, the latest generation is we already have remote maintenance and remote diagnostics. As I just recap from what Mr. Vicky said, so sensors is giving a lot information, a lot of important information when it comes to AI and IoT. And today, a lot of equipments are working with this. So this is where, for example, now when we had the COVID-19, so imagine a lot of people work from home, but if they already have the infrastructure such as, invested in autonomous, remote diagnostic, remote maintenance, people can log into the equipment and monitor from the dashboard, because most of the dashboards now available in the systems from the providers are web-based. So they can easily log in and collect and look into all the data, and they know the health of the system, whether it's, and you can also have a predictive maintenance or predictive breakdown, and you're able to repair it on timely manner. So moving from here is what you're getting is, your margin, your return of investment, it's value driven and sustainability. When this framework, this strategy is applied, one has to imagine when we had the COVID-19 lockdown, imagine you are in an essential service like FMCG, or you're a pharmaceutical company, and your workforce, all your operation is like 50% automized and 50% relating to foreign labors or something like this. How much of business is going to be lost during this time? This is where your service is really needed. Number one, you really have a resources problem. You cannot deploy your manpower. And number two, at this time, you have a very high demand of your products to get into the market. Can you see the huge gap? Yeah, the huge gap produced. But if you already invested in automation, autonomous, and with the usage of the tools like AI, IoT, data analytics, even during the lockdown, your systems will be working. Your staff can work from home and monitor every inbound and outbound. Your sales and marketing can work efficiently. And your business yes, you may have a little impact due to transportation and logistics, yes, but again, you will not lose so much of your revenue. So this is where it is very, very important for CEO, CIO, CEO at the current stage to rethink, revisit, remodel, and restructure your business operation. And it is high time for everyone to stay relevant in business today. You need to invest in automations in order for you to drive into Industry 4.0. I know I've came across many companies, they will be talking about IR 4.0, moving towards IR 4.0. And they're still talking about that. But zero work, zero framework strategy has been not been done, you know. And when they start to talk, that technology is no longer relevant because it's fast moving. Things are fast moving. So you need to go according to the flow. What is the market really want available in the market? Yeah. Luis, the next slide, please. Okay. So now we talk about, these are very typical flow of a vector design warehouse, supply chain and distribution, materials, suppliers, manufacturers, distribution, customer, and to consumers. So imagine if all this work is done with the manual method. By the time from the raw material and then to the finished product, it may be too late. And imagine if you're handling FMCG products or a perishable products. Do you think fruits and vegetables will be fresh? Never. So this is where you need to get things delivered fast. I agree also with what Mr. Vicky said, the farming, you know, the reasons, recently I saw the Malaysian economic statistics, which was released the first quarter of this year. The agriculture, comparing to last year, agriculture has dropped minus 8.7%. It's the biggest hit. And we have to think about two types of agriculture. One is farmers, where vegetables and fruits, perishables, yeah? Perishables is grown and it's been sent to end users. And the next thing is the commodity market, such as our oil palm, rubber, yeah, and etc. So this is a very high time for us to go into IR 4.0 and to be sustainable in the business and also to be sustainable to the environment. Next slide, please, Luis. Okay, this is a logistic process flow in a warehouse. So all this process, when you look at it, it can be automized with less human resource. At present, as we know, we have a lot of issues with the foreign laborers, you know, with the COVID, you know, a lot of companies has to cut down their operations with the social distancing and the right to follow the SOPs. So this is where now the impact is actually coming to that. So with when one company or any company or business model, they are comfortable with, all right, in terms indeed of investing into automation, I can have 10 people to work for it. You know, it is cheaper, you know. This is the usual statement that we used to hear. But at the present time, they are in the losing end. And they will be in the losing end also moving forward, because we never know when this pandemic is going to over. as we heard from yesterday from the president of WHO, it's far from over. Until the vaccine is found, we can't be safe. So this is very important now for investors, stakeholders of any companies, owners, to look into the next move for them to invest, because you are also doing e-commerce. So if you look at the flow, if you look at the chart, you have a returns. So as in, I'm sure that you all are aware that a lot of returns is also coming from the e-commerce sectors because of wrong orders has been sent, a wrong product has been sent. As if when you order something, then the wrong one has been sent. So the returns is also very high in when it comes to e-commerce logistics. So this is another area that people has to relook of your workload. Okay, the next slide, please.
Mr. Shami,
Yes.
I think the 8-minute allocation for you is almost
over. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This is the last slide.
Perhaps you could wrap up. Thank you.
Okay, this is the last slide. Okay, sorry. So this is how the new generation automation, where distribution, logistics, supply chain, and also other related industries, manufacturing can look into it. For example, the IGV mini robots, which is very useful for e-commerce. And then you have a autonomous VNA, which is useful for distribution warehouse. And then postal for distribution sorters for very fast sorting automatically rather than using more manpower. You have auto picker robots. Instead of human, you can replace with the auto picker robots. And then, of course, the famous Boston Dynamics robots, the pick and placer. I call it that the road runner. It looks like a road runner. So yeah, so these are the technologies now available, and this is where they need to leverage, they need to invest, and in order for us to move to IR 4.0. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I think by now, those who are watching with us, they should be able to see a certain flow. First two presenters giving us a very big picture on what the future holds for us, and then Mr. Shami came in and give a little bit of what you can do based on value chain perspective. So now let's bring on our last presenter for the session for round one. Mr. Oliver, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you.
Right, the floor is yours.
Is it possible to get one of the slides up, please? Perfect. First of all, welcome. I'll be speaking on VR and e-gaming, but first I want to touch on a few topics to stretch this area for you a little. The future with AR and VR and how it can boost the economy in all areas. At the company we've been working on tokenization games, placement of rewards on a business, on behalf of a business, and travel. Now, what's so smart about these technologies? Let's take the AR and the VR arena. Say you have a business. You're able to, in a space, through your mobile phone and apps, place certain rewards or certain things that could attract a customer to your shop. That's one of the concepts that have been profound and have proven time and time again to create revenue. During the pandemic, however, we got to the issue of, okay, people cannot go to the shops, people cannot go to certain stores, and that's causing a problem. So what if we were to make a store that was fully digital? Technically in the real world, there's nothing, but when you pull up your phone, there's this complete store. Now, touching on esports, this concept is from gaming, because before in time you were playing games. Now we're taking gaming technology and applying it in business and agriculture and so on, improving these areas. Now I'll give you an example of travel, a certain idea in terms of the airlines. Now, when this area gets up and running again, once the pandemic dies down, which is hopefully soon, you could, for example, as a business, have certain tokens around the world which were partnered with airlines that would then encourage people to go certain places. That's the power of this sort of technology. Can I get the next slide, please? There we go. Here are the virtual shops. These virtual shops are an example on how to take the gaming aspect and put it in the real world. These are fully engageable, and this allows a consumer to simply take their telephone, download the app, and shop in certain areas around the world. These areas technically don't exist, so you're eliminating the need to build a shop. All these things are becoming a reality due to these softwares and due to these technologies. That's the shift. On top of that, you're creating jobs. These types of systems are going to need an immense amount of delivery. We've seen it time and time again. It's been proven very well with Food Panda in Malaysia, which is a fantastic company, by the way. And they're doing a really good job. And there's a lot of stuff for them to do due to these deliveries and so on. And in this area, it can actually boost the economy. Another area of this technology, which I personally find very helpful, is that I'm able, with these technologies, to show whoever I want to show my idea to specifically. I can literally say, put on these glasses and have a look at what my idea presents. And in this area, because of the gaming aspect, you're able to create scenarios that are specific to any type of area. It could be the agriculture, it could be farming, it could be any sort of business that you do now. These technologies are allowing you to imply the gaming aspect into business. So could I please have the next slide? Thank you. Yes, now touching upon showing, you have property development as well. Now, this is also the gaming aspect, because now you're able to, let's say you've got an investor for your properties, your property developer. These technologies are now allowing you to build the environment beforehand, before it's built, and literally place your investor in this environment to experience what it's going to be like to be in this environment. Hence, making it a little easier to get your investor to be on the same wavelength, whereas before, you're kind of, with the gaming area, you have the advantage of actually, showing this thing. And before, it would be a little bit of a guessing game. Sometimes you would have issues because maybe you couldn't convey in the same way through your papers or so on how this project would be. There would still be that imagination factor. That's simply eliminated with this technology. That's why it's so fantastic and allows so many business owners to, it can be anything. That's the crazy thing about this technology. It's literally limitless. Any area, anything you do, this technology allows you to present and show and give people the feel of what you do. Could I please have the last slide? There we go. Now, the one critical issue about these areas, it's a very advanced area, and we're shifting into IR4.0, and these technologies are certainly and most definitely going to be a big part of the shift. Now, whoever's watching and has a business, I highly recommend that you start educating yourself on these areas, because they're allowing you to do stuff that simply hasn't been possible before. Now, the one for me is for example, the virtual supermarket. The thing is just to build a shop, just to get all these things in line, which has been shown before about all the steps to distribution and so on. It's a big process. And these technologies are simply allowing you to actually eliminate a lot of the steps, but also create jobs, because you're assigning these jobs in a different way. And when you educate yourself on these topics, you'll start to see the opportunities in your business. And it's most areas, it's very, very broad what you can actually do. And going into the AR topic, we're in a shift now where we're at a point where at some point we're going to have glasses that are going to be AR driven with tracking technology of walls and so on. And these technologies are going to be a live market. It's going to be somewhat, if any of you have time, check out the game Cyberpunk 2077. It's the closest example to what is initially going to be possible, but in the real world. And it's not going to be in 2077. It's going to be in the next 5 or 10 years that this is coming alive. There's already concepts of these type of things working, and people are making a lot of revenue because they're strategically using this technology to their advantage. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Oliver. Now, I really like the last portion of your presentation, Oliver, because you mentioned something that I have to do on a daily basis in terms of education. Imagine the possibilities, for example, teaching your students how to do chemistry experiments, very dangerous experiments. You can't possibly have it in lab at current point of time. And this is a concern from a lot of universities around the world, because I've been listening to a number of webinars talking about how do we pivot online in terms of teaching and learning. So Oliver's solution would really help a lot of teachers and lecturers out there. Now, let us go through the first round of question to take on from what Oliver has mentioned just now. A lot of the things that Mr. Harita, Shami, Vignes, Oliver mentioned, is touching on who has to do it, which is us, the humans. Now, when I listen to everyone, I can't help but thinking about my students. How would we bring them to be like, to buy in on all these items? Because as mentioned at the start of the session, we are at IR 2.7. That's pretty backwards, to be honest. So if you don't have the students to get interested, to understand what's going on and the future possibilities of what all these technologies can do for us, they wouldn't come on board, and we will forever be, at least in Malaysian context, IR4 2.7. So perhaps we can go one round from the panelists on how we should bring, we should get in understanding on IR 4.0 among our school children and the public in general. So who would like to start first? Anyone?
I can continue.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So let's go to the education area. For me, when I was a kid, games have taught me a lot, and these technologies are fun. They're allowing you to learn in a fun way. And there's a lot of content. Most of the content I have learned has been online, YouTube. A lot of these areas are available to you, and I highly recommend, especially as a business owner, at least for my part, I cannot place value on what this technology has allowed me to do in my business, because I'm no longer forced to. You can convince, you can explain, but this technology is allowing you to show it. And for whoever's your consumer, your investor, any area that you want to convey your business in is becoming visual and an experience, as if it's in real life. That's how powerful this technology is. So I would recommend that anybody who has interest in making the shift in IR 4.0, this is the time to do it now, because we're still in the shift. If you educate yourself well, you'll place yourself in a position where you don't have an issue making business partnerships. You don't have an issue developing your business to follow the wave. If you initially imagine this space, the space of internet is not visible. You cannot see it in the real world. It's a signal. This platform and technology is running there as well, and that's why it's so powerful. If you're a person who has a shop, you can develop a shop that doesn't exist, that people can see in an app and order your products from, but in reality, there's nothing there. There's no rent. There's no nothing. And that's the leverage you'll have. You'll eliminate so many things, so many factors in your business that could save you money to develop this business and go on to automation and so on, such as the other wonderful speakers have spoken about. Is that's what this is allowing you. So I highly recommend using YouTube. Has endless amount of content on these areas, on AI, VR, AR, and I highly recommend that you let go of the older concepts and attempt to make a shift into this area, because it's just so much easier for a business owner to get out there, and it's limitless, literally limitless for you as a business owner.
I think I will shift to Harita, probably because you're a graduate student at the moment, I think, and having that experience between the industry and then coming in back to your research, you might have a different call on how we can shift into the future.
Yeah, Doria. So when it comes to my first-hand experience, previously I was doing my job as a software engineer, doing the application development and all. Then I had the interest of moving into the AI industry and machine learning kind of stuff. So all I did was following some online courses that was available in the online learning platforms to get a good idea on what are the things that there is, and like all the theories and the concepts that I was self-taught from online tutorials and all. So that's a very good way to go with and to start with. And the next thing for the students, the main thing is, as Oliver has mentioned, so the main thing is that the huge amount of resources we have available in online that we can follow and get the use of. And the next thing is using the knowledge in the practical aspects, where you do all your projects or the research on top of those areas that you have learned. In that case, the teachers or the lecturers are having a responsibility of motivating the students to go for the new technologies. And that is not essentially teaching them the new technologies, but motivating them to use those technologies in some innovative ways. And I have seen many hackathons and competitions going on these days, online as well as on from the big companies out there, to solve their real world problems. I guess that is a very good platforms for the students, where they can compete as well as to gain the knowledge on the real world applications. So I guess like there are pretty much very good arena out there where you can go there and use your theoretical knowledge in practical aspects. In that case, entrepreneurship should be encouraged a lot. So that would be the good way to get industry 4.0 uh, into Malaysia or any other country in the near future in a very sustainable way.
Thank you so much. To pick up on what Harita mentioned, I think there are 2 points that is highlighted. Number one, problem-based learning, because it's still an issue when we talk about why graduates, for example, can't seem to fit into jobs that are assigned to them. Perhaps they might not be exposed to what is actually happening outside. So probably a lot of hackathons can do that. The second one is the entrepreneurship element, because I suspect that a lot of people out there, they might not see the cash sign, the value of that to the businesses, especially how do you generate income from all these technologies. So I'm passing the text response back to Mr. Shami and Ines. You are from the industry. I think the main question now is, how do we get SMEs, small medium enterprises? That's a term used in Malaysia. I'm not so sure if other countries are using properly small medium industries. So how do you bring them on board? In Malaysia, for example, over 90% of SMEs, let me rephrase that. The GDP of the Malaysian economy is actually contributed by over 90% of SMEs. So how do we bring these guys forward, because they are the ones that actually run the economy?
Right. So, okay, mind if I go on first?
Sure.
From what I have seen, right, the biggest challenge that most SMEs have is basically the confidence. Okay, a lot of them think once they invest, they're going to lose money and they're not going to be able to recover. Okay, so first step is basically getting all these parties, well, I would say, educated in a way where they understand that this is not an investment to lose. It's basically a solid or sound investment that they need to put in order to transform their business, right? So they have to think out of the box. They have to think in terms of how it's going to impact them in the future, and they cannot be afraid. And one good opportunity is basically bringing the students on board as well. So these students will have hands-on experience in implementation, for example, okay, or looking at designing a particular sensor or solution that helps a particular industry. Okay, I mean, in our universities, unfortunately, we don't have much practical experience. We don't really go in and work with the industry to understand what's happening out there. I mean, it's a reality. Unfortunately, it's true. But if there is, see, I always believe that it's about learning, right? We have to be, we have to have the opportunity to be exposed to something where we can then learn from, and that is the best way to learn, not completely using, you know, theoretical textbooks. I mean, obviously you get the basics there, right? But in order for you to really understand how to develop and how to grow, it has to be practical, right? And I think without that exposure, students and SMEs, and also some support from the government to say, like, go ahead, maybe, like most SMEs are expecting some sort of form of support from the government. And with the current scenario, I think if the government can invest a little bit, it'll go a long way. Okay, Shami, yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vignesh. Thanks, Doria. Doria, let me start with your previous question to Harita. I think, in my opinion, it all has to start from our education system. Okay, let me tell you this. I'm sure that everybody knows, like in KL or any major cities, there is this robotic training center for kids. It's a very good platform to start for leveraging them, train them into moving towards IR 4.0. But who is benefiting this? This is the question. So we need to bring this kind of technology to schools. It has to start from there. Those who are going to these training centers those are kids whose parents are affordable to pay for the training, for them to go and learn, to have the fun. And this is where everything starts, to do a little automation, little thing with AI and IoT, they start to learn some programming and so on. But imagine if this technology, this kind of trainings is brought to our normal school. There are a lot of capable kids, and a lot of kids are able to make use of this and to learn new things. And then let's move to SMEs. This is where they're going to grow. And now we are talking about upskilling and making people ready to move. But I believe now SMEs has realized during this pandemic, a lot of them are going for digitalization, selling foods online or whatever they do, they start to do business online. Yes, they can do online, but in some of their process, which they need automation, this is where they're going to lack. But if they have the knowledge, the skills, and the people, they're able to, like what Mr. Vicky said, they have to come out of the box to invest the confidence. Otherwise, we're going to do things as usual, as conservative as ever. So all these has to come with the right steps. So starting from the education, that our education system has to be reformed, and those are the things that need to be equipped in the schools. Start learning, start producing. And also when go to technical, I agree with what Mr. Vicky said. Let me share my experience. In 2003, I was sent to China, to Fudan University. Prior to that, I was doing an installation in first silicon wafer fabrication, wafer fab in Kuching. So I was doing the installation of the equipment, and it was a wonderful fab. But when I was sent to Fudan University, when they said to set up this lab, I thought, okay, a lab, how big the lab is going to be. But when I arrived at the lab, there was birds and stars on top of my head. I almost fall off the chair because the facility, the lab facility, was 3/4 of first silicon, and the equipment they have invested in China at that time is the same equipment which I've installed in the real production facility. And I was so amazed with what they have done. It's class 10 wafer fab facilities, and when I came back, I told my friend, in the next 10 years, China is going to be a dominant market when it comes to electronics. And today they are. So they are producing engineers, not by books, but also by practicality and as a real test engineers. So this is why they are far ahead. And even my experience, I can tell you, when I was in technical college, the last year, I went outside to learn all these practical automation things and get as much a certificate as possible. And when I went for the interview, I got the job much faster than those only without only with degrees and without any experience or any knowledge on this automation. So I had like PLC, I have pneumatics, and at that time. So I make use of this, and so that I'm in front of others. So I have the skills for me to get the job, and this is very important. So again, it is going back to education, trainings, and now I think with all so much of options open with internet, I think it's much easier for us, and it all has to start from there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shami. Now, to pick up from some of the points that you mentioned just now, number one, go to China, because based on my experience as well, they spend a lot on their labs. It's massive. The equipments are much better than us. And somehow they really encourage people to test, to experiment. And then I think don't underappreciate don't be ignorant in terms of what China has done. Now, yesterday, I think if I don't mistake, yesterday, I attended this live online conference from Times Higher Education. It's one of the largest education-based company that gives us ranking on what's the best universities around the world. What surprised me yesterday was China is probably 10 years ahead than any one of the countries in terms of deep learning. So they have a lot of centers publishing a lot of papers, receiving a lot of citations. So to be honest, we don't have to go far to collaborate. Can just go easily to China to just learn and understand how they're working. And I really agree with the panelists. You have to get your hands dirty, go down on the field and actually start doing it. Probably we can borrow Nike, just do it. There's no time to wait anymore. If I can reiterate one of the points that was mentioned earlier on, the time to do it is now. So Dr. Rahmat, passing it back to you for round two.
Thank you very much, Dr. Doria. Thank you very much to all the speakers. Now we actually move on to round two, where we would actually like the speakers to actually share their experience of some sort of case study or user case where you have already, managed an application that is, an artificial intelligence application, that IoT application, virtual reality that you yourself have managed or executed personally. Perhaps that will actually bring it home. That's the idea. So perhaps let us begin with Brother Vignes again.
Thanks. So I think one of the major, we're talking about AI and IoT devices. I think one of the when I was with British Telecom, right, one of the advantages that we have over others is basically in BT, the data analytics platform actually captures information from every single router. Okay, so in terms of customer experience, right, usually what happens is you would have individual homes having their own set of routers, but in the UK everyone has got a BT router. Okay, and the advantage of that is it sends back data. The volume of data it sends back is absolutely amazing. So it basically captures so many matrices that ensures that there is almost zero downtime. Okay, so preemptive measures can be taken using data analytics that allows our systems to actually predict whether there's a failure going to happen or not, and then decide whether to send an engineer or whether to maybe do an automatic reset of the routers or switches, and it's fully automated. So in terms of customers, choice of say provider, right? I would definitely choose them because it is so easy to ensure that I've got 100% uptime guarantee. Okay, so and of course, a huge amount of data had to be processed to actually come up with the ability to look for patterns as well. So this is one of key elements where we talk about how AI has transformed the telco industry at least. Okay, back to you, Rahmat.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vignes. Perhaps let us hear from, if I'm wrong, perhaps Mr. Haritha. You mentioned about managing or applying for sports. Now, would you like to actually share with us your own experience of applying the technology to that industry? Over to you.
Yes, Rahmat. So when it comes to sports, so everyone thinking like sports is just having couple of teams together and have a particular set of rules and going for that. But it's a multi-million-dollar industry where uh, everything is based on the strategies as well as like many investments goes on there. And because of sports, there are many other industries also involved in there, like apparel industry, as well as some industries like transportation, logistics. Many things are born there. So one good example is Formula One, where that is going to be like one of the major industries where data analytics and AI has been used. Uh, like as you know that Petronas from Malaysia is sponsoring the major F1 team Mercedes out there. So their team is having 50 odd data scientists working there in Silverstone for them, uh, analyzing the data real time that coming through the cars on the game. So that's how they build the strategies and all. And one of the experiences we had was here in the group sports, we had to have an ability to annotate the huge video repositories that we have, because each game has been recorded for the training purposes, sometimes for the broadcasting purposes. But previously, what we had was manual annotators who was having the kind of knowledge on sports to annotate each group sport event. We'll say in a soccer game, we had to annotate where the goal is going to happen, or when the goal is going to happen, who's going to push the goal for the ball for the goal, kind of things. But it was a very tedious task and it took a lot of time. But in sports, time matters a lot. We need to have the analytics or the game strategies built before that next game going to happen. So what we did was we built a system which can analyze the games as well as act as a AI powered annotator who can watch on the video and say, okay, there's a goal going to happen, and this guy is performing not well as that has been performed in the previous games, that kind of thing. So that was very feasible in building the game strategies and all. And one good thing was a system that they built for diving. Diving as a sport, you doing the flips to get the marks, uh, and the marking was previously happened by some human eye, but sometimes by just a flick the marks can be changed. It can be a gold medal or a silver medal because of that, just a flick of an eye. So the AI system that we have built is used in marking those diving kind of things, so making a like huge change. Some might think like the things like that, like just putting the marks in a diving sport, or just getting where the goal is going to happen in a sports scenario, is not going to change the world. But to be frank, those things are used in surveillance as well as in security systems. The systems that we have developed for sports are now like widely used there in surveillance and those things. So that's how like AI and those things in sports like leverage the power of AI to uplift the sports industry as well as the other industries out there.
Thank you very much for that sharing, Mr. Haritha. Let us move to Mr. Oliver to actually perhaps share some experience. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Perhaps Mr. Shami, my apologies. I actually asked him earlier. So Mr. Shami, perhaps you could actually share an example that combines the multiple aspects of IoT, VR, AI, automation in your wide breadth of experience.
Yeah, okay, I can share during my working tenure with the printing industry. So a lot of this process has to be automated. So we are calling it as a pre-press and press. So we were doing system for pre-press, it's automatic. So as you know, the printing industry back in 2003, 2004 also had a very a revolution, just like when we capture a picture using film, and that has to be processed. So they also went digitalized, they call computer to plate. Before it's computer to film, film to plate. So then they have a computer to plate. So this is a machine where all the news will be exposed with a laser head, will be exposed on the printing plate, and then will be processed. And then it comes to our end where we need to align the image. Okay, we call it as a alignment of the image, or we call it as a punch and bending, prior, aligning the image to the press, And this is when we do the punch and bend is actually according to the press configuration. The different press manufacturers like Manroland, KBA, Goss, they have a different configuration. So what we do is we use a CCD camera to capture the image and to align the image under 30 micron. So that's a precision we are calling, okay, under 30 micron. So we are using, the IoT, the AI for the CCD camera to process the image in a fraction of second, in a microseconds, for it to decide whether this plate is a good plate or not a good plate. The image is correct or aligned, or the image is out of alignment, so it will be rejected. And then the latest innovation, what we came was, we made a wedge. So we told the plate manufacturer, the workflow company, that we put a wedge. From this small wedge, it is about 4 by 8 millimeter. You have 18 parameters set to check the quality of the plate. So that another CCD camera will capture this wedge, the image exposed, and it will fraction it into 18 portions to check every aspect of the quality of the plate, okay, including if it is affected by temperature, or if it is affected by the exposure, or it is affected by the over gluing, or it is affected by the chemical process, and everything is measured by pixel. So just in one wedge, you can fraction it into 18 different parameters to check. And once this has been checked, the plate will be processed for punch and bending. Let's say, in this case, if this plate, three plates in 1 hour or whatever during the production time fails these parameters, automatically the system will be stopped. Next thing is, we will send an SMS and also emails to the productions. So whoever is in the productions, they are very well aware, including the workflows. So they're able to check this process. So you can imagine that we are already using the IoTs to get connected with like a GSM to push out the SMS. At that time, there's no WhatsApp, it's pre-era. So by SMS and also push by email, a notification, and the production will be stopped. So these are the technologies that we bring in order automation will be optimized and can save cost to the company. Because printing plate is actually, once you already done with the print, you already expose a printing plate, and if the plate is defective, you can't do anything on that. It's a total waste, because the waste of energy, waste of material, is an aluminum plate. So the entire process is money. So to process one plate, depending on the paper size, it costs nearly about at that time around about between 9 ringgit to 15 ringgit. So you can't have this waste. And print has to be on time. Newspaper has to come on time, otherwise it becomes a waste paper. So that is how crucial it is, this bottleneck process.
Thank you very much for that sharing, Mr. Shami.
Thank you.
So we've heard from Mr. Shami, Mr. Haritha, Mr. Vignesh about the applications of some of the technologies we've spoken about today on Industry Revolution 4.0. Let us hear something from Mr. Oliver about one of the industries that have been badly hit by COVID, and that's the tourism industry. Would you see the application of VR to actually help the tourism industry get back on its feet? And have you been involved in something that you believe is either already supporting tourism or has the potential for that?
Yes, we have been presenting. I'll go back to where the VR initially is powerful, is because we had a meeting with some guys, and through the VR system, we were able to show what we meant with this technology. And then we actually went into speaking about tourism. And what's wonderful about the tourism areas is, imagine you want to go to a hotel, you want to go to a specific location around the world, but the current technology is not really giving you the feel. You can see the pictures, you can go online and search, but you're not really there, you're not really experiencing it. And this is where the gaming aspect and the VR is coming in, because we're able to create these environments in the real environments as if they're in real life. You're able to create behavior actually with AI and all these things in the engines, and go and experience this place. It can be viewing a hotel. It can be going to the hotel room and being there. It can be going to a specific area in a specific country that you want to experience, so that you can foresee what it's going to be like to go there. And I believe that that's going to skyrocket the tourism industry, because people are going to be able to remove their doubts. They're going to be able to see things in a different on a different level than what they'd usually do. But there's also another area which is wonderful, and that's the AR part, which is a slightly different topic. But this is in terms of working with companies or airlines to place tokens in areas of significance, which could attract people to go there and get these tokens. It could be a crypto token, it could be real currency, which could also skyrocket the tourism industry. Or we had an idea with Virgin Atlantic, for example, who I heard was in a very bad place, and we were thinking, why not place coins in significant locations, contact an airline in a similar position, and have this coin. It could be a Bitcoin, it could be one of these things that are attracting. There's a certain amount of them, and whoever gets there first gets the coin. And on top of that, they get to experience, it could be, for example, climbing Kilimanjaro in Kenya. Suddenly there'd be a whole bunch of tickets sold to Kenya, and a whole bunch of people would get to experience these things. But on top of that, you could show them what the experience would be like before that through the VR.
So that's like Pokemon Go for the tourism industry.
Yes.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much for that sharing then, Mr. Oliver Leroux. Perhaps looking at the time, I am aware that we only have about 5 minutes. So perhaps what I would like to recommend us do is let's wrap up this particular session. However, let us focus on some sort of recommendations, as well as what would you believe we need in the short, medium, and long term to actually ensure that the systems that we're looking at actually support our regeneration or initiatives. Perhaps whilst you actually share that, I just want to actually highlight some of the questions that we had through our chat group. So let's bear that in mind as you actually share your thoughts. So one of the questions was about how do the panelists see the impact of these technologies on our health? I mean, the use of 5G, we're talking about millimeter wave radiation, and as well as, let me see now, there was another question. Okay. The question pertaining to where we are with Industry 4.7. Now, I mentioned about the short, medium, and long term. How do we get to Industry 4.0? So these 2 points, the trajectory to get to Industry 4.0 from 2.7, as well as the health and safety aspects. Perhaps we will actually start with you, Brother Vignesh, to actually wrap up the session, or rather start the wrap-up session. Oops. Brother Vignesh, can you hear us? Or perhaps that's an audio problem. So in the meantime, perhaps Brother Vignesh, can you hear us? Okay, the sound, perhaps the volume, the sound isn't getting there. So perhaps maybe we'll start with the youngest in our group, Mr. Harisa. Perhaps you would want to actually start the sharing as well as summing up.
Yeah. Like the best thing we can move forward is like what we have seen, like what we have discussed today is like how we can move for the Industry 4.0 and what we can do there. The first thing is to make our mindsets clear and what actually we can do and what actually we should do. That's the main thing we have to take into our cases, because in some cases that the ambitions that we have to achieve is really high. So that's better to have like really big and like huge ambitions, but you have to have a workable action plan towards that. So the main thing, if you need your business to go forward with Industry 4.0, the main thing is to be a realistic action plan that has been validated by a technical personnel, not only a person with some spiritual aspect, but also with a technical aspect. So that is going to be the key point, I would say, that you need to have to move forward with this revolution, because else you're going to end up in a loophole where you just imagine the things and you just invest on the things and you just end up being bankrupt. So that's what's going to happen, and that I have seen in many cases like that. So that is the addition that I have to give for you. Over to you guys.
Thank you very much, young man, Mr. Harisa. Everybody's young actually here. Let's move on to Mr. Vignesh. Would you like to actually share your thoughts on where should we actually go from here, the short, medium, long-term plans, to make sure that we get from 2.7 to 4.0?
Okay, I think I think I already mentioned this earlier. The first thing that we really need to do is first get I think Shani mentioned this, the CXO, CEOs, CFOs to actually first understand what is this whole transformation thing all about. I said IoT is just a small part. Okay, it involves the entire breadth and range from AR, VR, robotics, automation, cloud computing. IoT is just one part of it. You've got systems. You have got all those 9 pillars, right? Those are key in ensuring. For example, if I take IoT, I need 5 pillars to support it, right? It has to be done. Okay, so but first, the people in the industry, especially the business owners, need to understand how and why it's important, right? So with the pandemic, I think a lot of them have felt this pinch, right? Where you need to change. If you are not going to change, you're going to be left behind, right? So those, if you look at how people have transformed, right? Those guys who were, making foods, right? Foodstuffs, right? Instead of opening up stores, now they just do it from home and deliver straight to the home, right? So that whole model of bypassing the middleman has already ripped apart the whole industry. If I want to buy vegetables, I've got guys to come straight from the farm, fresh to the home. I don't need this middleman. Okay, so those guys who are in the middle, making a lot of profit, are now dying, right? And with IoT, I can even track the freshness of the food, right? So I know it's done right from where it's coming from, how long it's been there, what sort of temperature it's been exposed to. That's not really practical, but at least the possibility is there, right? But everybody needs to pick up from there and understand that they have to first understand this whole IR4 and try to map it into the environment. Without that, whether it's going to be when by the time we reach 5, we'll still be at 2.7. Okay.
Let's hope that we keep moving towards 4.0 and not get stuck. Right. Next, perhaps, Mr. Shami, would you like to actually share your thoughts as to how we can actually move towards 4.0? Over to you. You unmute your microphone, please. Yes.
Yes. Sorry. Done. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Okay. Perhaps I would like to start on the energy policy and regulations. Okay. What I see is, number one, quite a number of companies, they are worried about the moving towards IR 4.0 or automating their business is the energy price. So for these, I think we have to look into the sustainable energy. This is number one. What we can provide. So perhaps our utility has to change or reform to more sustainable energy. For example, renewable energy by solar or geothermal, or even produce energy from the organic and food waste. So this energy is back to the people, in a much cheaper price. That is number one. Number two is localization. A lot of this technology is coming from Europe, America, or even from China. But I think if these companies, the suppliers or the manufacturers, the inventors, if they can go on some localization, that will actually boost the confidence of our people to invest, because the price is really matters. I go back to my earlier days quote. I always say we are a German company, but do not worry, we are local price. So this was my key point when I won a few sales projects in a couple of countries, because I tried to localize most of the components and so on. So it was a winning factor. So this is important. And number three is for business owners, they have to look into their lean and agile. They have to go in this direction to be lean and agile. So they have to start with their root cause analysis, and then they have to come up with engage with partners, a consultancy to come up with the solution design architect. And the next thing is they have to leverage from the technology which is available at this moment. So that is the key at this for now, in order for them to move to IR 4.0. But once again, is the business owners, CEO, CIO, COO, investors, stakeholders has to change their mindset now and start to restructure and remodel their business so that they can be sustainable, they stay relevant at this particular time, and for them to generate the growth and be sustainable. That's my thought.
Thank you very much for those thoughts, then, Mr. Shami. Last but not least, perhaps Mr. Oliver, would you like to actually share your thoughts as to where we should go from here?
Yes, most certainly. To any business owner out there, I would highly recommend the education aspect right now, getting to understand these areas. There's so much content available out there. Go on Google, go on YouTube, go on Udemy. There should be content available in your area. As a CEO, especially in my company, I do my best to always be orientated well around these new technologies and keep improving, because in this area of IR 4.0, the long-term decision-making can actually prohibit progress, because this technology shifts so quickly. So initially what you want to do in this time is really orientate yourself well all the time. Make sure you're keeping up to date with all the updates, all the things that shift, because long-term decisions can sometimes result in an outdated technology by the time you make that decision. So I highly recommend education and doing it swiftly and quickly every day to keep yourself up to date with what's coming.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. Thank you very much for those thoughts. Agility. I think that's a very common thread that we are beginning to see here. What about yourself, Dr. Doria?
All right. Now, if I could just, I'm a teacher at the end of the day. So I like to summarize what the panelists have been saying in terms of the call for action. Number one, leadership. Key role of leadership is to understand what's going on, to change the mindset if possible, and to embrace the change. You can't avoid it at the end of the day, else you'll die, especially if you're in a business. Number two, rethink your business model. Look at how you can disrupt certain aspects of it. Mr. Shami throughout the presentation, for example, looks at the edge process. How can you make it automated? How do you improve efficiency, for example? Number three, Mr. Harita's remarks on workable plan. Make sure you have a plan. It's good that you do prepare a plan, but then make sure there's a technical aspects to it. This is something that perhaps a lot of the companies out there might leave out, because you still need to see whether it's feasible on the ground in terms of implementation. And I think the next 2 points is more on implementation, what's happening on the ground. So we're talking about sustainability, what kind of energy that you're using. If I could put in sustainable in terms of a business model as well, your finance, as well as localization. Meaning to say, how do you make sure that whatever that gets used, your experts, you can leverage on it. And then how do you make sure that the investment come from local? This also talks, we have to start talking about job creation for the local market, especially. Agility and I would say resilience is also another factor to consider for you to move forward. And finally, if I can close off with what Oliver has mentioned, education at the individual level. Go read up, go watch videos. It's very silly for you to say, I don't know, because the materials are free and available online. You should ask as well. For me, throughout the COVID period, I learned a lot just by attending webinars, especially in my discipline. I'm from a social science background. And then for the businesses, leverage on the content. You may not have to be the content creator. You can start by being content user first. And then when the capacity is there, then you can bring in people like Oliver to start helping you to create content to move forward. So that's my summary. Passing it back to you, Rahmat.
Thank you very much for that summarizing, Dr. Doria. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of our particular session on ESG TV today on regeneration, Industry Revolution 4.0. Thank you very much for those of you who have stayed with us for an hour and a half, and those who will be viewing this on our YouTube channel. Catch our next sessions on our particular TV channel, and more information will actually follow. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rahmat. Thank you, Dr. Rahmat. I thought I'd just pop in and just say hi to everybody. Thank you for accepting our invitation to actually moderate the event. And I think you and Dr. Doria did a fantastic job in summarizing, in getting the questions and summarizing the whole thing. And most especially our panelists, Vignesh, Warren, Shami, Oliver, and also Harita. Thank you very much. Harita, I know it's late in Australia right now. For you to be around is fantastic, really good. I think all the knowledge and what you shared and your experience has been really worthwhile, and putting this into play, especially what we need to do now in Industry 4.0. With that, I'd like to close from ESG TV. Thank you very much. Look out and stay tuned for the updates of the Entrepreneur and Sustainability Conference that's coming up in September 10th and 11th. The co-event is called Regeneration Asia. We are having weekly webcast and once a month, forums like this. So the next forum that's coming up is on equality. So we got 4 ladies that's going to speak about equality around the world, what's happening. That'll be very interesting because these are hardcore situations that are happening around the world. And I think it'll be really great to have all of you all on board again. Thank you so much and good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night. All right, bye.
Good
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.